Hi, and welcome to a presentation on inclusive reading, disability representation in elementary school literature. Before we begin, I want to just start with a little introduction on what the presentation is about. The objective is to understand the importance of disability representation in children's literature and discuss why educators should include books about disability into their classrooms. The presentation will also touch on what inclusion education means, why representation is important in the classroom, and what type of books to avoid when including books about disability in the classroom. What is inclusive education? In the USA, the term inclusion has become the most common to refer to practices that integrate students with and without disabilities in general education. Inclusion usually means that special educational supports, including specialized curriculum, are provided in the general education setting. Inclusion education is a concept that contains, but also transcends the emphasis on special education placement and service provision in general education. In other words, inclusive education encompasses the experiences of students with disabilities, but is not exclusive to them. So it's about incorporating all types of students in one general classroom setting, not excluding and not segregating. In all, inclusive education is a process by which a school attempts to respond to all pupils as individuals, records inclusion and exclusion as connected processes. Schools developing more inclusive practices may need to consider both. Emphasizes overall school effectiveness, is a relevance to all phases and types of school, possibly including special schools, since within any educational provision, teachers face groups of students with diverse needs and are required to respond to this diversity. This is just a quick look at what inclusion also means. As you see in each small box, we have different types of education when it comes to students with disabilities. There's exclusion, where the student is excluded from a general classroom setting. We have segregation, which occurs when the education of students with disabilities is provided in separate environments. Again, so that would be, special education classrooms where a student is only with other students with disabilities. You have integration, which is a process of placing persons with disabilities in existing mainstream educational institutions, as long as the former could adjust to standardized requirements. So we will allow the child with disabilities to be in the classroom as long as they can keep up, or as long as they are not a distraction to other students. And then, of course, we have inclusion, which involves a process of systemic reform embodying changes and modifications in content, teaching methods, approaches, structures, and strategies. So we are placing the disabled child into a general education classroom and not expecting the child to conform to the regular curriculum, but changing and adapting the curriculum to meet the child's needs. Why disability representation matters. If classrooms are becoming more inclusive, then the materials we present to our students must be as well. Although the need to educate students about disability is important and perhaps even self-evident as part of diversity curriculum, critical perspectives of discrimination and ableism are less common than awareness activities focused on increasing sympathy or empathy. Two notes to add before moving on. If anyone is unaware, ableism is a set of beliefs or practices that devalue and discriminate against people with physical, intellectual, or psychiatric disabilities. And what this passage means, taken from Bagheri and Shapiro, is that disability discussion or conversation should be a part of classroom conversation more than just once or twice a year, during an awareness activity. For example, a school holding a fundraiser for Autism Awareness Month, yet conversation about autism or people with autism in classrooms remaining non-existent. This presentation, as well as the related Instagram account, which serves as a book club type recommendation list, will touch on ways to open this conversation in an age appropriate and developmentally appropriate way. Disability representation in literature. Teachers play a key role in fostering a positive view of disabilities by facilitating classroom conversations that promote awareness, understanding, and acceptance of human differences. However, research has indicated that many teachers are reluctant to talk about disabilities with their students because they are unsure of what to say or fear of offending disabled students. One of the most important foundations that early childhood educators try to lay for their students is a love of reading. However, students are not always able to identify with the books and characters presented to them in school, especially disabled children. When we talk openly about disabilities, or when we don't talk openly about disabilities, they can become the elephants in the room, and children may interpret disability as a restricted topic. Educators can prioritize discussing and educating children about all kinds of physical differences. One way to do this is to read children's books that show respectful and genuine representation. Even though bringing up disability might be awkward for some teachers, or they might have a fear of offending a group of students, or bringing up something that they might think could be a heated discussion, using literature to help guide that conversation is a really beneficial way for children to kind of grasp the concept at an age appropriate level. Reading about people who are different from themselves lets students imagine, reflect on, and learn about others. Reading about people who are similar to themselves helps children feel seen and included in their classroom setting. Children identify with characters who are like themselves. For this reason, it is important that educators read to children stories that represent children in all their diversity. Stories should present a diverse range of characters from a diverse range of backgrounds who are powerful and competent and who feel like real people. One way to promote acceptance of children with disabilities and of individual differences in general is through shared book reading. Shared book reading experiences can promote children's understanding of the world around them, introduce children to perspectives that differ from their own, and help them make personal connections to the text. Now, before bringing any books about disability into the classroom, it's important to know what to look out for when choosing books that feature disability. Because, like many topics, there are books that properly discuss and represent disability, and there are books that don't always hit the mark. When choosing books to read in the classroom, educators should avoid books that make characters with disabilities viewed as people we should pity or feel bad for, include disabled characters who have unrealistic, out of this world abilities, like supernatural powers or whatnot. Because remember, the goal is to reach a student in the classroom who may have a disability and help them feel represented and seen. And include stigmas and stereotypes of people with disabilities. For example, a book that features an autistic child who throws tantrums or have meltdowns. This would be showcasing a misconception and a stereotype that people may associate with the autistic community. A quote that really stuck out to me when doing research for my presentation: incorrect and stereotypical representations that portray disabled characters as objects of pity who have a deficit, for example, have the potential to do real harm to disabled people. This can be both through the attitudes of readers who have absorbed these views and the harmful disabled readers may experience, or the harm disabled readers may experience when reading problematic representations of their own lived experience. How to find books that represent disability. There are many different articles, websites, and blogs that feature children's literature with disabled characters and that discuss the importance of representation of disability in children's literature. This is just a short list. There are many out there that you could find on the internet, but some of these include best children's books about disability, Representation Matters, 10 children's books with disabled characters, the best 18 children's books about disabilities, the current state of disability representation in children's literature, and the ethical responsibility of representing disability in children's literature. Part of my presentation also connects to a social media page that I have created on Instagram called Reading Inclusive. For more book recommendations, you could check out the Instagram account. Again, the username is reading_inclusive. This account is for teachers who are looking for appropriate books that feature disability to incorporate into their shared reading in elementary school classrooms. Reading Inclusive also posts content that features the importance of inclusive education, proper representation of disability, and strategies on discussing disability to students through literature. Thank you, and I hope this presentation provided a little more insight on the importance of inclusive settings, inclusive literature, and representation in literature.